While Tracy gets that set up, I'd like to welcome everybody to the Data Platform Women in Technology Mental Health Day. Thank you for joining us. We are about to start the Mental Health and IT, Safeguarding Our Most Precious Resource by Tracy Boggiano. Tracy works at DocuSign. She is the Uber speaker. She has spoken at, hundreds of events, I'm pretty sure. This is probably her third or fourth one today, or maybe just this week.
Third one this week.
Third one this week. All right. See, I was right. She was the Past Passion Award winner for 2020 because she does lots of good things that make the rest of us look bad. She is a data superhero and just a regular superhero. She volunteers for foster children in her area and is just an all-around great person. I'm honored to call her my friend, and I'd like to welcome you all to her great session on mental health. Thanks, Tracy. Take it away.
All right, so we shall get started. By the way, our most precious resource is people, just so you know that we are the most precious resource. I've been a DBA for over 20 years. The best way to find my contact information, just because Boggiano is kind of hard to spell, unless you take a print screen of it or something, is databasesuperhero.com. All my contact information is there. My DMs are open on Twitter, and my email address is there if you need it. The only thing I'm going to point out on this slide is that I've got my mental health first aid training, so I know how to hopefully deal with people that are in crisis. So that's some of the content comes from there. And, I volunteer with the Disability Rights in North Carolina as a mental health advocate as well. So, and she already mentioned my foster care stuff at the top. So those are normally the only three things I talk about, and everybody else can just look at the icons when I do this talk. So on to the objectives of this talk. We're going to discuss some workplace causes of mental health challenges that cause us to get depression or anxiety because of things that happen at work. We're going to discuss ways we can help ourselves with, just general stuff we can do, on to even getting professional help. Discuss ways we can help others by just generally talking to them or advising them to get mental health or taking them to appointments and things. We're going to discuss how employers can provide help through programs at work and things like that. And then I'm going to provide plenty of resources at the end. I've got like 5 slides of links at the end that you guys can go read up on and get information on mental health and IT and mental health in general and things like that. So want to make sure you have plenty of information to go on and be able to look at stuff yourself. So a little bit about who I am. I don't know if you guys got to look at the slides that were at the beginning, but I always start with, I'm not a mental health professional, so I'm just a DBA. So I don't want you to think that, I'm a doctor or anybody that can give you a medical advice or anything like that. I do suffer from mental health issues myself. I have bipolar complex PTSD and anxiety, and work flares all those things up sometimes. And of course, personal life does as well. And sometimes, I have a tendency to get manic and buy new cars or a new laptop. Oh, that was all back in 2018 though. So you'll hear a little bit about the 2018 debacle later. But my work has been affected by my mental health, by, personal things happening. But my work has also affected my mental health by the things that happen at work, by undue stressors and things that happen at work. I have tons of stories about it. You'll hear a few here and there just because it would get really boring if you heard every single story I had about work. And I decided I was ready to start talking about it publicly and raise awareness after my debacle of 2018. And I noticed nobody really was talking about it, especially in the SQL community. And I just think it's time to raise some awareness around it. So then I've done lots of research on the subject as it relates to IT. So I've got lots of stats and things to back up the fact that, it is a subject that needs to be talked about in IT. So one quote I want to start with is mental health isn't just mental illness. It's just part of being human. So it's just like physical health. They kind of intertwine together. And it's just part of being a human. So it's not anything to be ashamed of if you have problems or anything like that, because it's just part of being a human being is to have mental health. Because you either have, even if you're not suffering from a mental illness or a mental challenge right now, that just means you have good mental health. So when people have positive mental health, they're able to realize their full potential by being able to like volunteer with things, and they're in a good mood, and they're able to, cope with things in life and not be able to, get stressed out very easily. And like I said, they cope with the stresses of life. They just come in and go. Luckily, I had that situation just a week ago where I had to deal with a family crisis, and I came out of it unscathed mentally. So that's pretty good for me. And you work more productively because you're not distracted by things that are going on in your head, or you're not, suffering physically from the mental health condition that you're doing because you're not overly tired, and you're not eating good and things like that. And you make meaningful contributions to your community. So you may be volunteering or going to volunteering with your church or the local community or SEQUEL community, or just even being a good parent or a father figure or something in your own home. So those are things that you're able to do because you're in good mental health. In general, the US population, 1/4 of the people go and get help with mental illness in a given year. That rises to 42% in tech in the US. So we're slightly more stressed out people. The UK is worse though. They got 48%. And there was a little bit more information on this study. Like 2/3 of the people in this study said they're stressed by work, and more than half said that they've had anxiety or depression at some point because of work. And 13% of them said they are constantly stressed with symptoms such as anxiety attacks, headaches, continued tiredness, and it's affecting their ability to work. And that's, not a good place to be in when you're working on computer systems that need to be up 24/7, and you can't make mistakes and things like that. If you're getting a panic attack and you're getting called in the middle of the night, that's really not a good spot to be in. So this is a general list of mental health disorders. A lot of these are chronic disorders. Depression and anxiety are the most common ones caused by workplace issues. But I know like Kellen's doing a talk on ADHD later. I suffer from bipolar. So, work triggers my depression, part of bipolar sometimes. And I have anxiety. So anxiety and depression are the most common ones just caused by work. And then you just have all these other ones just because they are there. And I wanted to make people aware that there's more than just depression and anxiety that can be issues. So more about why I'm speaking out now. I have lots of personal experience, so why not? Might as well stick it all out there and make everybody realize they're not alone, and try to get people to accept that, it's okay to have mental health issues and to do something about it and to talk about it. I'm tired of the stigma around it. I mean, I know when I first started talking about the subject matter, my second talk, I had some guy give me this really awful review and stuff, but he didn't give it to me. He gave it to the organizers of the SEQUEL Saturday, and they basically said that they would have kicked him out if he had said that out loud. That's how bad it was. But I also had someone in the same event give me like one of the best reviews ever that I put on Twitter, because they were taking stock in some of the stuff I said and looking at their own life and realizing they needed to make some changes. So, and like I said, people need to realize they're not alone. I think Paul Randall had that in the slide deck that was playing over and over before this started. He mentioned that he realized he was suffering from depression this year and blogged about it. And, everybody can get into that spot. And a lot of people with COVID going on, being trapped at home a lot, have gotten to that level. And now they're talking about when you get back out into society and go back to work, you're going to have anxiety just because you're not used to interacting with people. So it's going to be even more. So then I took a look at some of the stats, and I was like, holy moly. It's a very chronic condition that goes across all boards of sectors of work. So let's get this talked about and get people thinking about it and realizing they're not alone. That way they'll actually seek out help. So a little bit about my story that started all this. The debacle of the summer of 2018 is my catalyst for this talk. So it started with me taking a job in June of that year. And then subsequently, like a week or two later, it was a 40 people company that got shrunk to 20. And then the developers that I was working with started dropping off like flies and taking other jobs because of the layoffs. And they were advising me to get the heck out of the company as well. And I was just like, whoa, I just made a big mistake. And I don't know if you've ever been in a company that started doing layoffs, but that's it's pretty stressful. And then I was out at Sequel Saturday, LA, and I got 5 minutes from the airport, and a boxcar truck hit my Camry I rented and made me do a 180. And I had a week-long vacation there, and I was terrified of driving the whole week after I got my third rental car, because my first rental car, the rearview mirror had fallen off, and I had to go trade it in. It was a nice Dodger, bright orange color, yellow thingy that would be easy to spot in a parking lot too. It was nice, but I had traded in for the Camry, and then the Camry got wrecked, and it was god awful stressful. And then I had a crisis with a friend that I had to help out with. And while I was doing all this, I actually switched therapists during the middle of this, and I was traveling and doing about 2 Sequel Saturdays a month. So I was just in a whirlwind of constant going, and stress. So this caused me a lot of anxiety with the job change and the therapist change. I started off being depressed, but with all the activity I was doing, because I'm bipolar, I spun into mania, and I had a hard time getting in touch with my doctor so that I could get preventative medicine to keep me from landing in a hospital. And instead I landed into a psychiatric hospital, and it took me a year to get completely stable. So that's why I think it's important to talk about this before other people end up in the same state I ended up in. So I talked a little bit about my diagnoses already. I was having bipolar, complex PTSD, and anxiety. I can get quite a lot going on as long as I'm on my medication and things aren't going haywire. I'm usually doing pretty good. I've learned a lot with therapy on how to deal with these things, and so it helps out a lot. But I've had a lot of work stressors over the years that have caused these things to act up, and one of them's like being on call. Being on call 24/7 at one job was very stressful, because I basically got called every other night. And it was mainly because I was only supposed to be on call 1 out every 3 weeks, but my coworkers didn't answer the phone in the middle of the night. And then they got one system that they decided was so important, and my coworkers didn't answer the phone, that I would be the only one on call for that system instead of fixing the coworkers. And then you've got, the pressure of making sure the system stays up and not making mistakes to make it take down. I know DocuSign, we have 5 nines. So it's like, you got to get on there and make sure you fix it as fast as possible and not do something that makes it worse. And then, most upgrades when you do SQL Server or patching happens in the middle of the night. So you're up late doing that. And I use my superpower being having insomnia to do that. But also, doing development work has a tendency to burn you out, because you're just constantly working on the same things over and over again and developing stuff, and you have unrealistic deadlines to get things done. And then I've been at 3 companies that were doing layoffs, and those things have stressed me out as well. So I've been through a lot of different things over the years, and I have stories to go with some of these other things as well. So an IT survey was done through a company, and 86% of the people said they would never discuss their mental health with their employer. And that's That's because of the stigma that goes with it. Why would you want to tell your boss or your employer that you're having issues when, you feel like it could negatively reflect on you? 44% aren't aware of if they have any healthcare coverage that covers mental health things. And that's because the company doesn't talk about mental health when they tell you about your healthcare coverage. And 63% said that, their employers never even discuss mental health. So like when they do all hands-on meetings or sign you up for your benefits, they just don't mention that at all. And that's, you don't know what to do with that. So globally, outside of IT, $1 trillion is lost to productivity every year from mental health conditions. 210.5 billion is that to depression alone. These are just staggering numbers. 69 billion are due to suicide, because you got to consider, you add up the person you lost, how it affects the coworkers, having to replace the person and train them. And it just, it adds up to, a lot of money. And then 800,000 people, almost a million people die from suicide in a year. And that averages out to one person every 40 seconds. And this is where, if you're ever thinking of suicide, I encourage you to call a suicide hotline and definitely reach out to a friend. Hopefully you're seeking professional help with a therapist or a doctor at this point. And, remember, suicide is just a permanent solution to a temporary problem that can be fixed. So don't do it. Reach out to somebody before you do that, and definitely reach out to someone. They got suicide hotline, 1-800-SUICIDE. It's easy to remember in the US. So some workplace causes that end up causing you some depression or otherwise issues. There's mainly 4 of them: stress, burnout, harassment, and it's not just sexual harassment, and bullying. And I've suffered from all of these. Isn't that great? Having one of those people that, and one of my companies, I got all of them at the same company. So let's talk a little bit about each one. So stress and burnout, I kind of put together because, stress causes burnout. So in a poll of 11,000 people, 56% of people report that they had stress and burnout. And there's this little website called burnoutindex.org where you can take like a 10-question survey, I think it was, to find out if you're suffering from burnout. You might be surprised and find out you are. I was surprised that I was when I first took it. Right now, I wouldn't be surprised at all if it said I was. But I would encourage you to take that and see what the signs are that you might be suffering from burnout, even if you don't technically, have it right now. So that's a pretty good little indicator of whether you're having it or not. So some causes are being on call all the time. So, like I said, that one job where I was basically on call 24/7, not being able to make mistakes when you fixing things when you're on call. Sorry, I had to have something to drink. And just, that's a lot of pressure. And then, when I'm on call for my current job, I can't even leave the house during the week because we have to be online in 5 minutes or 15 minutes to do everything. And if you're in a car and you got to try to pull off and hotspot and all that stuff, and we got 2 different computers, it just doesn't work. 24/7 uptimes, the 5 nines and things like that. If you can't afford even a maintenance window for things, luckily we have AGs, so we can get maintenance in because we can fail over and things like that. But you got to worry about that. Meeting deadlines. A lot of times I was given deadlines that were unrealistic at some of my jobs. I had a job that a lot of times I was given stuff around 5 p.m. to do that they wanted done by 8 a.m. the next day. So I'd be up all night working. One time I did that, and then I had to drive 3 hours away the next morning, and I drank a lot of Mountain Dew, and I was lucky to make it there alive because I kept falling asleep. But they sealed a deal on a contract with NASCAR because of what I did that night. But still, it's like, I don't think it was worth it to me for them to do that. And constantly being on, I normally have my cell phone here so I can show it up, but I didn't bring it in my office this time. But we're constantly checking emails off hours, Slack, Teams, and other messaging things. I encourage people to, once your hours are over and you're not on call, to not check anything work related, because you need that downtime from work, and you need to take that time off and concentrate on your personal life instead of constantly looking at emails. Put that thing away, or turn off notifications or whatever. And if you can get away with it, not even have it on your phone. I mean, I don't have work Slack on my phone. I figure if they need to ping me, they'll page me with pager duty. So, and burnout is usually caused by just prolonged intense stress. So you get, enough stress built up, and then you're going to be like this dude, and you're going to want to slam at the guitar and just, take out all your frustrations. And that's going to lead you to where you got the burnout, because you're just constantly under stress, and then you just don't feel like doing anything, and then you're just tired all the time. And it comes from having a lack of control over your work situation, because you can't control that you're on call all the time. You can't control your deadlines and things like that. So my advice here is, when you're starting to feel too much stress, is to talk to your boss and try to get things rearranged on your schedule, and try to make things more realistic as to what's going on in your life and just in general in your job, because, sometimes they don't realize that they have put all this pressure on you and that it's too much. So usually that works out. Smaller companies, it doesn't. Bigger companies, it does. So, you got to at least try and see if, you can get some help there from your boss. On to harassment and bullying. So I've had lots of people, in jobs that did yelling and rude comments. I had my first job, the CFO and eventually CEO, he used to yell. He actually used to be an elementary school teacher, and I wondered how he did that. But he used to come through and just yell and curse. And he one time threw a bald eagle statue at my ex-husband, because we worked at the same company, because he was so mad. And then the CEO of the company, one time he got mad at his computer and slammed it on the ground, his laptop. It actually fixed the problem that was going on in it. I think his hard drive must have been loose. But he had a baseball bat in his office too. Both of them did. And I was kind of scared to go in there. I've had coworkers that, when systems go down and stuff, they come over there and start, yelling about, what did you do? Blah, blah, blah. And I wasn't even at my computer when it went down. Making fun of colleagues. I've gotten picked on for wearing white socks with my black slacks. It's just like, I just don't have any black socks, to match them. I don't care what I look like, whatever. But I also had, this place had a 5'2" manager that was a guy, and all the other guys are 6 foot, and they are constantly making fun of how short he was. And that's just inappropriate to make fun of you. And don't make fun of people's age or their height, their weight, what they wear, what they eat, or anything else. I mean, it's just not appropriate. And then we've all, know about sexual harassment. I had a colleague of mine that had a Playboy calendar in his office, and the best HR would do was let him put a sticky note over the, parts you don't want to see. But they let him keep it up in his office. And every time I walked down the aisle, I could still see that Playboy calendar. And I've had, other sexual harassment type things where, I had this one coworker that used to just stare over me over my cubicle, and he used to track all my online activities when I ran races and things like that. And I just found him very creepy that he knew so much about me, and he would come in and touch me on my shoulders and stuff like that and rub them, and it's just like creepy. So, and I've seen people get picked on for their religion at work, and that's just harassment as well. Everybody has an entitlement to whatever religion they want to have or not have. So, that's not an appropriate discussion to have at work either. All these things can lead people to feel anxious about going to work, because they don't know what's going to happen at work because of these things that are happening, and lead to anxiety. And then when something happens, they might have a panic attack over it. And they could get depression as well, because it's like, their job feels like someplace it's not safe to go to. So when you're having a mental health issue, that there's certain things that can happen that'll affect you. One, it can just make you sad, or it can make you irritable. Those are kind of two ends of a spectrum there. You can, you can be depressed and get either one of those. So you can start biting people's heads off and be irritable. I used to do that, unfortunately, to my kid sometimes, but I can also be sad and not want to get out of bed. You can have extreme mood changes with highs and lows. So you go between having no energy to having a lot of energy, because you're just like, all of a sudden your stress hormones kick in and you're able to do a lot, and then they disappear and you're really low. So you can have excessive fears or worry or anxiety. That goes back to having panic attacks, worrying about whether somebody's going to say something to you at work again, or being the 24/7 systems, whether something's going to happen or not. And you start pulling away from people and activities. This is very common with people that have depression. They just don't want to be around other people. So if you notice people in your life that are doing this, friends and stuff, probably should check on them and see how they're doing. And you also will get changes in your sleep and eating habits. Most of the time you'll start sleeping too much, or your sleep will be disrupted so you can't sleep, and you might be more hungry, or you might not be hungry at all like you normally would be. And you have a lot of trouble concentrating. And this really affects your work here, because we need to be able to concentrate to do our jobs in IT, because we need to be able to basically be almost perfect with our code and things like that. And if we're turning in bad things, or we can't concentrate enough to even remember what we're supposed to be doing, that has an effect on what we're doing at work. So different ways mental health has affected me. I've got some negatives and positives. Fortunately, positives probably only apply to me. I've missed work. I had to stay in a psychiatric hospital. I've had the doctor write notes for me to stay out of work a couple other times. I get complete lack of focus sometimes, and I literally have to write a to-do list that lists like baby steps to do things so I can remember what to do. I don't feel like working. That's even worse. Some positives is when I get extreme energy, I'm your person to do patching and stay up all night. So, and I do work well under certain stressful conditions, depending on when it is and how it's going. I mean, I did recover a corrupt database while I had a migraine on top of a mountain when I was supposed to be on medical leave, and I was supposed to be skiing on terrible Wi-Fi. So it's like, you can put me in a weird, stressful situation and I probably can get out of it. But if you put me in a normal, stressful situation, I don't respond as well. So 10 ways to avoid burnout in IT is, one is to take some time off when you're feeling, like you're burnt out. Take a couple of days off, mental health days. There's nothing wrong with doing that and not doing anything. You don't have to take a vacation or anything. Just, veg out your house and do something for yourself. Identify what your stressful tasks are and talk to your boss about trying to alleviate those, or get some people to help you with those. Unplug at the end of the day. Again, get rid of that phone, turn off your computer. We're all working at home pretty much at this point. So we need that break from our work. Eat well and exercise. These things have a tremendous effect on your mental health, and we don't have a tendency to do them even when we feel well sometimes. So socialize with other people. I know that's hard to do with COVID, and we all have Zoom fatigue, but it's kind of necessary to do that. You can use the phone and call people and stuff like that. Develop you a little bit of an escape plan, like I'm going to go walk at the park, or I'm going to go work at Panera for a little bit just to get a different, scenery going on there, so that you're not always doing things in the same place. Make sure you're getting plenty of sleep. Try to get somebody cross-changing your job so you're not the only one doing it. And the one I need to learn how to do that's, outside of my job is learn how to say no, but you may have to do that with your bosses. Like say, I've got too much on my plate right now. I can't take this on, and see if he can assign this task to someone else. Some things you can do for yourself to help with any with mental health issues is just take care of yourself. Eat well, exercise, and sleep, all mentioned in the previous slide. Develop a hobby away from the computer. I like to do origami sometimes. I do that for the foster kids I have. I make things and bring it to them. They're kind of fascinated by them, especially the hopping frog that I can make. Get away from social media. I know we all like Twitter in the SQL community, but I recommend Chrissy Lemire has a muted list on GitHub that you can use, and you can basically get rid of all the politics, and then you can add your own stuff in there, and mass shootings too, because we're in America, and you can add your own stuff to get rid of the pandemic, and then you're only seeing basically, stuff that's relevant and stuff you want to see from people. So I would recommend checking that out. Get some light therapy, especially if you live in like Seattle or one of those places that you don't get out much, or if you just don't get outside much. Relaxation training, do some yoga or some meditation, even if it's just for 10 minutes a day to get your mind relaxed. And spend some time with your family and friends, even if it's just over Zoom. Everybody's getting vaccinated now, or some people are, so you might be able to actually do that in person. Where to get help is if it's a workplace issue, you want to talk to your boss about it, especially if it's just the stress and the burnout. If you got harassment and bullying going on and your boss won't do anything about it, you may have to go to HR. If you're having other issues that are maybe more personal, or you just want to talk through your stress at work, you can, talk to a friend. Then we level it up. You might want to see a therapist. I personally think everybody could use a therapist, because there's always something that goes on in life that you may need a third party's opinion on, or I don't remember how to say this, a neutral opinion on. And they have websites like betterhelp.com where you don't even have to leave your house to do this. And you can, run things through them, and they can help you with coping skills and things like that. And you may need to see a doctor and get some prescriptions to help you through the rough times. And then once you're through them, you can, get off the prescriptions. And, again, there's nothing wrong with seeing a therapist or a doctor. I know that goes against stigma and stuff, but it's just, if it's necessary, please do it. What friends can do for you, or coworkers, is, listen non-judgmentally. Don't judge people for their feelings and how they feel. Everybody feels different ways about different things. Don't jump in and try to save the day and give advice based off of what you see on the internet. You may have to just listen to what they say and come up with, advice based on their certain situation. Ask questions that show you care. So pay attention to what they say, and then ask questions that follow up with what they're saying, and don't have a preconceived questions that you think you're going to ask. Be patient with them. A lot of people don't like to talk about it because of the stigma. So you may have to approach them a few times and get them to open up. Don't be critical of what they're saying. Don't, criticize them for their feelings, or, criticize them for how they're handling things. But, do try to get them to get the help they need, or try to get them to open up without being critical. And check in on any friends that you haven't seen in a while that may be struggling. I know I have a few on Twitter that I've been checking on here and there just to see how they're doing, because I haven't heard from them. Don't be confrontational. So don't, jump down their case and try to confront them and tell them, well, you need to do this, blah, 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 blah. And just be honest about your concerns. If you think they need to see a professional, or you think they're having problems, tell them so, in a nice, polite way, of course. And just tell them you're worried about them, and you think they could use a little bit more help. Some things not to say to people, because I've had all of these said to me, and they've pretty much been insulting. It's just pull yourself together, because when you have depression or anxiety going on, these things are likely not to happen. Snap out of it. Yeah, not gonna happen. Just pray about it. I really hate when my church friends say that. You have the same problem as my friend, blah, blah, blah. So you should do what they're doing to fix blah, blah, blah. Yeah, not everything works the same way for everybody. Just like when you go to the doctor and you get medication, not everybody's on the same medication, because some meds work for some people and some don't work for other people. So just distract yourself. Now, I do make recommendations in here on, getting a hobby and stuff like that. But if someone's so far down, just telling them to just distract themselves You need to be a little bit more concrete on your advice than just making up these little short phrases. You don't need medication. Don't ever tell that to somebody that's on medication, because people that are on medication for mental health issues don't want to be on them anyways because of the stigma. I know I have problems with this all the time where I'm like, do I really need to take meds? And yeah, don't tell them that. Don't tell them to stop acting crazy. Try again. You gotta talk to people. Just don't worry about it. If they're worried about something anxiety wise, they're not going to stop. So you got to talk to them about why they're worried about it, and try to get them to rationalize why they're worried about it and why they shouldn't be worried about it. But you don't just don't worry about it and move on. Cheer up. Yeah. My favorite, my dad told me this one: therapy is for people who are weak-minded people. So he actually said that about PTSD too. Things will be better in the morning. It's like, eat an apple or take an aspirin and wake up in the morning and it'll be better, doctor advice. And just stop focusing on the bad stuff. Like people in these situations do not choose to do that. It's how the brain is working. Their chemistry is off. So things you can say to people. You can be honest with me. Get them to open up by telling them, hey, I really want to know what's going on with you. You can be honest with me. I'm not going to judge you if you talk about, mental health problems with me. Ask them if they want to go for a walk, because a lot of times people can open up when they're distracted enough to go for a walk. And I learned in my mental health first aid training, sometimes sitting across from a table talking to people is a little bit more uncomfortable for a person than sitting side by side by a person. So, because they can feel a little bit trapped that way. So going for a walk kind of leaves that open, and then you guys can work in the conversation there. If you know that they're seeing a therapist or a doctor, you can ask them how that's going so that you can, be supportive of that with them, so that they can continue to think there's nothing wrong with that. And ask them if you know they're not in treatment and you think they might ought to be, you can ask them if you can help them find help, and maybe even take them to their first appointment and sit in the lobby and things like that. Or if they're comfortable with you going back, you can do that as well. And ask them how they're really doing. A lot of times you ask people how they're doing and they just say, okay, fine. And they're not really giving you an answer. So if you're really concerned, back up and put the word really in there and make them understand that you want to know how they're really doing. Ask them if they want to go out and do something, because a lot of times people don't want to go out. I know with COVID, it's been hard to do that, but you've got to try to get them out. You can at least go outside and do something, go for a picnic in the park, or just anything to get them out of their house and being trapped inside. And tell them how glad you are to have them in life. I've got friends that remind me of this all the time, luckily for me. So, and try to remind them of good memories that you have of them, and bring up things that you've done. Those will help cheer them up a little bit and make it less likely that things will escalate a little bit. But between all these different things that you do to say to people, you're helping them along and actually talking to you. So what some employers can do to help achieve wellness: create open vacation policies. I know in the US, by default, you get 2 weeks. Some companies go up to 4, and it's very hard to, work with a 2-week policy. So having an open vacation policy, a lot of people don't even take that many days when they have an open vacation policy, but it allows for people to be able to take days for mental health if they need it. Offer flexible work arrangements. Sometimes people aren't morning people and need to come in an hour or two late and just work late. Try to offer some flexibility there. Honor a 40-hour work week. Don't make people work overtime. 11 plus hours a day, doubles people's risk of getting depression, just because they're always on. After 55 hours a week, you're losing your cognitive ability. So if you're working that many hours, you're just losing your ability to do stuff. And it's actually the more hours you work is a predictor for earlier dementia and death, which sounds pretty bad. So, like I said, we want to have more work-life balance. So respect boundaries. If somebody's not going to be answering their emails and noticing Slack after hours, don't bug them if they're not on call. Get rid of open office layouts, because these are just terribly distracting, and everybody has noise canceling headphones for these days almost, because it's just noisy in there. And there's actually more sexual harassment reported in open office plan environments than there is in other environments. And females actually feel more pressure in these environments because they feel like they're more watched and judged, and because they feel like they have to be more done up and dressed up in order to fit in these environments. And make sure that your health insurance includes mental health. Another thing you can do is educate yourself and learn how to develop empathy for different conditions. There's a link at the end for the workplace mental health topics where you can learn about different mental health conditions so that you can learn how they affect people. You can provide accommodations for employees. I know in the US we have the ADA, so you have to, because a lot of mental health conditions can be perceived as a disability. Bipolar is, for example, chronic depression is as well. So an example of providing accommodations is the modified work schedules, allowing people to work from home here and there if you go back to working in the office, modifying their work schedules for them, helping them with different ways to organize things if they seem to not be able to keep up with things the way you normally do it. And lead by example. Set your own healthy boundaries as a manager. Don't be working your extra hours either if you can, and practice your own self-care, and be willing to ask for help yourself and take your own mental health days. Now, what employers actually get out of helping their employees is a lot. So they get improved attitudes towards mental health, and it decreases the stigma in the office space so that people are less judgmental of all the employees. The employees are actually more engaged in work. They're more productive and creative, because we know how, we get very unproductive when we're distracted by our mental health issues. Everybody gets a better sense of overall well-being. They trust the company better because they're able to talk about things like this that are more personal than what they were able to talk about before. They're actually more satisfied with the leadership in the company because that they've let this topic be important. It actually improves interpersonal relationships at work between colleagues as well. Sorry, I had to take a drink again. And increases the commitment and loyalty to the company. So you're going to have employees staying longer and more committed to their jobs and things like that. The main thing here is for IT is we decrease our inefficiencies and errors. So that's very important, because in IT, the less of that we have, the better, because then we can code faster, get things automated faster, and we can keep our systems up. People aren't absent as much, so you won't have people bringing in notes to HR saying we're out for a week or taking as many mental health days. It decreases your employee turnover, and that $1 trillion that I showed you at the beginning, that lost revenue that you get due to work, gets decreased. And also the good news is 80% of employees that receive treatment report improvements. So that's, staggering number out of the 42% of IT people that would, you would get a lot of people that report improvements, and then you would have the more job satisfaction and productivity coming in there. And then you just get a better all sense of work there. Now I've added a special section in here for the pandemic. So we got to survive this darn pandemic with our mental health intact. I can't put darn in the slides or the real word I want to put in here. So I've got 7 areas of mental health well-being to nurture while you're working in self-isolation, because it's been tough. It's tough on me, and I worked from home before the pandemic, but I can't get out to do my normal things. So one is staying connected being connected to people. So schedule socials. I know I have some Zoom sessions that I've got scheduled with people during the week, and then it helps me stay connected to people, and I stay connected with people at church. Don't just text people or WhatsApp them or signal them or whatever communication method you're using. Try to use the phone or Zoom and see people, even though we all have Zoom fatigue. Check in on others you haven't heard about in a while so you can maintain that connection, and share some of your experiences you're going through. Maybe not talk about COVID 24/7, but some of the other stuff you're going through to stay connected. One thing you want to do is try to remain calm during this thing and don't panic, because like I know there's lots of different strands of the virus going around now. We don't know if the vaccine's going to cover it and things like that. So we don't want to panic over these things. So I recommend turning off the news and just getting your news from like a local government website to stay up to date, or the WHO. Or if you don't really want to turn off your news, only watch like one broadcast a day so that you're not, stressing yourself out with it. And do something for yourself, like, anything. Go out for a walk or a run, read a book, clean your house, anything that keeps you away from the computer. Do one of your hobbies, things like that. One thing we want to do too is be happy. I mean, it's very hard to do that when in these times. A lot of people are reporting a lot of depression and anxiety. So, get outside if you can, get some vitamin D, some sunshine, get some exercise. Accept that you aren't perfect, because a lot of things aren't work-wise. You may not be as productive as you were before, but that's okay, because you're working in a different environment than you were before. And look for the positives in life. I know I used to write 3 things I was grateful for in my journal every night. And well, it's been harder to do that. So I write 3 things positive that happened during the day now instead. That way I can remember that, there were positive things that happened during the day. And again, practice mindfulness, yoga, or meditation or something like that, where you can clear your mind for at least, 10 minutes. That's enough to help settle you down. And we need to work on our coping skills. So again, set boundaries between life and work. Cut off work when you can. If it's 5 and you don't need to work, turn off the computer. That way you're not tempted to go back in there and look at stuff. Try to have a designated work area in your home that's not, used for anything else if that's possible. Establish a routine close to what you had before. So if you were getting up at a certain time, do that again. If you had a long commute, maybe use that time to do one of your hobbies and do stuff for yourself, but still keep that time there. And take breaks, because I know a lot of people, including myself, don't get up from our desk and we just work straight through. But we didn't do that at work. We got up, went to people's desks, we talked to them. So we need to do that more often. I know I'm trying to get up and just walk down the street and back. My street only has like 5 houses on it, so it's very short, just to get some fresh air outside like every hour, because it takes less than 5 minutes. We also want to maintain our physical health as well, because physical and mental health are entwined. Again, go outside if you can, get some exercise. I know a lot of companies made their videos available online, so you can go to YouTube and other places to get some exercise videos, because you can't get into the gym as much. Some gyms are open now, and depends on your comfort level and whether you want to go there. The meditation and yoga again, eat healthy, drink lots of water, get away from Coke Zero like I've been drinking. And we also want to maintain our sleep. Stress has a tendency to mess this up. And we try not to work in your bedrooms, because your bedrooms should be for stuff you only do in your bedrooms, and stay off work stuff after hours. And we also want to see a sense of fulfillment. Productivity can feel like it's down when we're working remotely, even though it's really not, or it could be. And that's okay, because working remotely is completely different than working in the office, and you just got to get used to it. Don't overwork though and try to make up for it. Just do what you can. Again, take some regular breaks from your computer because you need it, or you're going to get progressive lenses like I got every year, and your eyesight's just going to keep getting worse. Chat with your family and friends and colleagues about not work. I know I get on Slack in the mornings and I talk to my coworkers in the mornings about what's going on in their life and stuff, and just say good morning to them. Set agreements with your boss on realistic goals. If things aren't realistic about what's going on in your situation at home, you definitely need to talk to them about setting a goal that's more realistic. Stick to some sort of routine, even though you're at home. It's best to be in a routine just because it keeps life more simple and easier to follow than not having a routine. And, even if you do something small, feel like it's an accomplishment because you did something. And just look out for others that might be feeling like they're alone. I go back to this quote: mental health isn't just mental illness, it's part of being human. Just remember, it's just part of who we are. So if you're struggling, seek out some help, talk to somebody today and get some help. I know there's some Sequel family members that have, said their DMs are open for it. I'm one of them. Hamash Watson, Anders Peterson, Steve Jones are the ones I remember off the top of my head. I'm sure Paul Randall is as well. So he's helped sponsor the event, and he wrote about his own struggles. Here's some podcasts I listen to. I've got a few others I listen to as well that are just about different mental health issues. I like the Happiness Lab Hour because it's just trying to get you to be happy. It's not about mental health itself. The Live Happy Now is the same way. The Hilarious World of Depression is just funny as all get out because they got a comedian that interviews other comedians. Evidently, every comedian has depression, but it's just funny. So, and Anxious Achievers is more about from Harvard, and it's got some great episodes in it as well. These are some blogs from the community where people have wrote about their different struggles and stuff with mental health. If anybody knows of any others, I'd be more than happy to add it to this slide. The last one, we did a mental health T-Sequel Tuesday, so I just put the roundup there. So we can pull that up, and you guys can get a slew of articles there. And then I've got like 5 slides of bunches of links. And again, you can download this off my Database Superhero website on my presentations tab. And then I've got this self-evaluation in here that was made for firefighters, but I think it applies everywhere. Now you could go through and see where you're at in a spectrum to see if you're okay or surviving, struggling, or in crisis as far as your mental health goes. And it just lists the things that your symptoms you could be having. And I suggest you take a good look at this and see where you're at and see if you might need some help. So I would encourage everyone to go out and download my slides and take a look at this, because it's a lot of information there that can help you with your symptoms and see what you may or may not, how far along in the spectrum you may need help. Do we have any questions?
Nope, no questions. At least not yet. Well, there was one, but we answered it. It was about the slide deck. And
yeah,
yes.
I can send a slide deck so you can post it on your site as well. That's no problem.
Yep. Any other questions that anybody would like to ask?
Oh yeah, I forgot to. Yeah, Anders, I mentioned you, I think. I'm looking at the comments now.
Okay. Most of them talked about how brave you are for speaking out and sharing and being willing to talk about a subject that is hard and make it more accessible to everyone. I used an app called Talkspace, I think is what it was, that my employer, it was one of the benefits that we had, and it allowed me to connect with a therapist and just chat with her. We had a couple of video sessions, but and I didn't use it for very long. It was just, a really short-term thing, but I had recognized this pattern that I had with dealing with certain issues. And I just wanted some help to break that pattern and come up with ways to not get into that really down spot. And so it was a great way to connect and talk with somebody without having to go like see a therapist in an office somewhere and deal with all of the extra work. It was just, we chatted and she helped me a lot.
Yeah, Talkspace is another one like BetterHelp. There's a bunch of them. I can't name them all.
No.
So I'm gonna say thank you to everyone. I have a slide for that. And then I'll put my contact information up. I don't know if we're doing speaker evals, but I'd appreciate any feedback that people might have if I can improve, or if I just did great, you can tell me that, because I can always use compliments.
You did do great. You were awesome. Dale wants to know if you have found meditation to be helpful.
I do that in the morning, every morning for like 10 minutes. It helps clear my head, and I use Calm, but I heard that what's the other one? Headspace is like 33% off right now. So and then 10% Happier actually offers theirs free for certain people every now and then. So, but I do find it helpful, and then sometimes I use the Calm to actually put me to sleep, because they have like nighttime stories.
I just like music, or the rainforest with the animals in the background. Those stories bug me. I'm like, please stop talking. I just want to listen to the rainfall.
Well, they don't talk a whole bunch.
I know, but still, like, I just want to listen to the rainfall.
So, but it's just I do find it useful. And sometimes I do it again at night, right before I go to bed, to clear my mind, because my mind's constantly racing at night, and I literally have to take sleep meds to help me turn it off. So it's if I can
Nature's
meditate,
wave machine. Nice.
if I can get my meditation done correctly, I don't have to turn my brain off with meds. But I'm open to any questions that anybody might have after here, because I know this is a sensitive subject to actually talk about out loud in a chat. So,
It's
because I know when I've done this live, I've had people approach me out in hallways and stuff and talk after the talk. So if you're open to talking via my Twitter or email or anything like that, just let me know, or hit me up, so to speak.